and welcome to the Kuriaknits podcast. My name is Erin and I'm so glad that you've joined me here today. I have to first apologize that this video is coming to you late. I lost access to my knitting software, to my editing software, and without that there can unfortunately be no videos. But I do have a lot to show you today. Unfortunately, no finished objects, but I am going to start with what I'm wearing because it's something that you guys have seen, but something that may not be looking very familiar to you guys. And so this is actually my oversized seasons cardigan, which you may know as a creamy white cardigan. But I had some dyeing adventures. So I found that I wasn't reaching for it very much because of the color. I didn't find that it suited me very much, and I liked the sweater a lot, but I just wasn't wearing it. And so I decided to dye it. I ended up going to pick up some Rant dye and looking up how to dye some natural fibers, and I ended up dyeing it black. And as you may be able to tell, this sweater is not black. So I don't know what happened, what chemically happened in the sweater. This was originally Cascade 220 in the color natural, and I put it in the black dye and it came out green sweater now. I still might dye it black. I had actually asked for recommendations on Instagram of some other dyes that would work, and I might use one of those in the future. But ultimately, I am okay with the way that this sweater turned out, and I actually think it's quite nice. So I'm going to show you the way that this sweater is. But basically, it turned out green, and there is a little bit of discoloration. You can see it right around here, where it kind of came out a little bit more of a yellowy green as opposed to a green. But honestly, the tonal difference doesn't bother me too much. Is it perfect? No, but is it much more wearable, or am I more likely to wear it in this color than I was before? Yes, because I've already worn it so much more. So that is evidently yes, that is an automatic win for me. And I always have the option to dye it darker, but for right now, I'm very happy with having it as a green cardigan. And I have literally no idea how we got here. So if you're wanting the same color of green, I don't know how to help you. I don't know what happened. I don't know how we got here. I am not a color scientist. I have literally no idea. So good luck. I wish I could like prescribe something, but I don't know how we got here. So that is that, but I am still loving the way that this cardigan fits. Still love Cascade 220 as a yarn choice, and would highly recommend knitting it if you are looking into it. I think it's an enjoyable cardigan to knit, and I've really enjoyed having it. It's really easy to throw on around the house, and with the color disparity that ended up with this dye job, I'm not wearing it anywhere fancy anyway. I don't really think of it as a fancy cardigan, and so it doesn't really bother me, and no one's commented on it yet. Actually, I had someone, when I wore it out the other day, say it was a nice color, so thank you to that person. But yeah, speaking of cardigans, let's talk about the Shrike cardigan. But before we get into that, I would first like to thank Anna Luisa for sponsoring this video. Anna Luisa is a sustainable jewelry brand, and it is a jewelry brand that I really love and enjoy, and it is for that reason that I've joined their Anna Luisa VIP program, and that just means that I'm going to have Anna Luisa on my channel for a little bit. I wear their jewelry literally every day. I find it has amazing quality. It has never tarnished on me. It has maintained looking really nice over about a year that I've had it, and I get compliments on it all the time. They were able to send me some of their newer pieces, which I am very happy to show you. They have a lot of amazing options for jewelry on their website. I am a silver girly, so I have mostly of their silver jewelry, but they have such a vast collection of, to be honest, mostly gold jewelry. But I am wearing this necklace. This is their Hannah Lee heart in green. The heart is a beautiful pendant necklace that I really like that it clasps in the front. You basically take it off from the front, which I really like, especially as someone that doesn't always have help with putting on jewelry. I really have been enjoying this ring. This is their mood ring, and so it actually changes color like those ones that you'd get as a kid, but this is just a more sophisticated option, and I have just been loving it. It switches between this like greeny, purpley, into blues and even black, and it's just really fun to wear. I've been wearing this one almost non-stop because I just find it so fun. And then I have been venturing into the world of bracelets. I've never been a bracelet wearer, but I find that on days where I forget to charge my watch and I don't have my watch on, that part on my wrist feels a little bit naked, and I find that that's a good time for me to put on a bracelet. And so this one is a really dainty one, and it has some different options for the clasp length. Everything that I am wearing today will be linked down below, and I also have a code down there for you to save 20% off your order, kuriaknits 20, but Luisa also has some deals going on as well. I've been really impressed with the quality, as I've said, but also their size range for things like rings. So thank you for Luisa for sponsoring this portion of the video, and let's get back to some knitting. So let's talk about the Shrike Cardigan, the cardigan that I'm now wearing. This is one of the designs that I have coming out soon, and the tester call is now available. So if you are wanting to test this stunning cardigan, please find the link in the description box below. Would love to have you on the team. And yeah, I've done all the calculations, the pattern's all set. I'm very excited to have it out in the world and to see other versions of it. So let me talk about it for a little bit. So the Shrike Cardigan is an all over broken rib cardigan knit in one strand of wool and one strand of mohair. Fingering weight wool, I have used Filcolana Arveda, and then for the mohair, I've used the Sanaskarn Tin Silk Mohair, and I find that they are such a lovely combination together. I was hoping to have the last arm done to show you in its entirety for you guys, but unfortunately I had a catastrophic event where my DPNs molded. Yes, like literal mold was growing on my DPNs, and I'm going to talk about that after I talk about the Shrike Cardigan, but like, it was a whole situation, and it delayed me finishing this cardigan, and it delayed a lot of knitting, to be honest with you. But thankfully, I've got new DPNs, which I will also talk about soon. So the Shrike Cardigan has a double knit button band, and it comes into a V at the chest, like this. It has buttonholes that you put into the double knit button band, and honestly that is the most difficult part of this whole cardigan. So if you're wanting to challenge yourself with some double knitting, or you have already done a double knit cardigan, double knit button band before, you are all good to go. You will be a perfect candidate for knitting this pattern. It goes into ribbing, detailing. Got some loose threads here on the sleeves, and then at the bottom there are decreases along the sleeve to make sure it's a tapered fit. There are, of course, I'm very happy if you do modifications on it. Just let me know beforehand if you're planning to test it. If you want to do a puff sleeve or something else, it is available in 32-inch to 60-inch sizing, but if you are needing more or less than that, please get in contact. I'm happy to grade to more sizes. Those are just the standard sizes I've seen set elsewhere, and those are the sizes that I have graded to so far, but I'm very happy to size a size below or above that as well, if that is needed for your body, which I'm very happy to do. This cardigan has some lovely detailing along the back here, and also I have done some short rows in the arms. So after knitting this arm, I realized that I would prefer the fit to be just a little bit different, and so I went through on this arm and added some short rows in the top here to ensure the perfect fit for an arm. And I'm going to be providing instructions for both of those in my sweater pattern, because I know that short rows can be a little bit daunting for some people. So if short rows is something that you're comfortable with, I've added some to improve the fit of the arm, but they are absolutely not necessary for knitting this sweater entirely. This arm I think looks absolutely fine, and it did not have any short rows in it, but I want to give you the most optimal fit possible. So if that's something that you're wanting as well, and you're wanting to challenge yourself, there will be an option for short rows in there that just makes it so that this like V peak here a little bit isn't pulling quite as much. And I vastly prefer the fit of this arm. You know what, that was an overstatement. Not vastly, I prefer the fit of this arm, but this arm is also okay. So yeah, the reason that I have not finished this arm yet, as I said, was because my DPNs molded, but I did end up blocking this part of the arm just to make sure that those short rows were fitting really well. And so I'm very confident in being able to put the pattern out to testers even without getting the whole arm done. So that is what I have to say about the arms, but other than that, the sweater is all set to go. All the calculations have been made. This knit is at a 22-inch gauge, and I have found that for myself that is perfect for fingering weight in a mohair, and a light DK even a sport weight is what I would recommend. I'm going to talk about yarns in a minute. But yeah, I'm just so thrilled to be able to put this out into the world and to see all of the tester versions. So if you're interested in testing this knit, please head to the description box down below and apply. I'm looking for people. If you've already tested it for me, I'm very happy to have you on again. I'm also going to be looking for some new people, and of course a diverse range of genders, body sizes, races, etc. I'd love to have everyone and anyone test knit this cardigan if you would so choose. So that's that. I'm going to take this off now because it's quite warm. It's warmer than my other cardigan, even though it's not as thick. The mohair content really keeps in the heat, which will be perfect for winter, but is not as good in the 20-degree weather we are dealing with right now. Before we get into the DPN situation, I want to quickly talk about yarn for this cardigan. I had said in the last episode that I'm going to be making another sample of this cardigan while my testers are, and that's still the plan. And I had bought some Pure Gid to do so. This yarn did not work for me. I started the cardigan and it was horrifically off. The gauge was off. The density was way too dense. I was able to get it down to a 21-inch gauge with this yarn, which I could have probably worked with, not ideal, but the fabric on it was way too dense. And it just made me realize that yarn weights are just this annoying thing in knitting that you can never trust, but provide some context but are never good enough. And I feel like I get that reminder every couple of months. So Pure Gid is advertised as a DK weight yarn. I would say that is a lie. I would definitely categorize this as a worsted weight yarn. Even just looking at it, I have some Cascade 220 right here, which is definitely a worsted weight yarn. Even just looking at them side by side with one another, I would say that they are about the same thickness. I'd say on camera, the Pure Gid is looking a bit thicker. I don't know how anyone categorizes this as a DK weight yarn. I even seen people, like once I realized this, I've seen people online complaining about this being categorized as a DK weight yarn because they are very much using it as a worsted weight yarn. So I would say if you are planning to use Pure Gid, please plan to use it as a worsted weight yarn, especially if you're using it on its own. I would not categorize this as a DK weight. To add injury, I looked on Ravelry and it recommended a 22 stitch gauge. I have literally no idea who is achieving a 22 stitch gauge with this yarn. I certainly am not. It was far too dense. And if you were looking for a very dense cardigan, maybe this is the choice for you, but it is certainly not the choice for me. It would have hurt my hands, and I don't think I would have liked the finished project as much. My main reason for knitting with fingering weight and a mohair is because I like the flowiness of the garment. I don't, like, look how nice and drapey that is. I don't actually care for the fluff very much. The fluff is great. It's not what I choose this for. And to be honest, mohair content I can take or leave. I don't mind mohair. I don't find a huge sensitivity to it, but I don't like it as much as wool, if I'm being honest. And so I used it because it provides really, really drapey, beautiful garments. This would not provide a beautiful drapey garment. Not interested. It was not ideal at all. And so I will not be knitting my short cardigan in this. It was just an excellent reminder that I need often, that I really need to make sure that I'm pairing the yarn well with the cardigan. And do I think this would make a beautiful cardigan? Yes, I do. I think it would make a beautiful one of these. And it will probably be a future sweater because I still adore the color and I want to work with it soon. It will just absolutely not be for the Shrike cardigan. It's just such a reminder that you need to be looking on Ravelry to see what other people have said about the yarn, or elsewhere, see what other people have said about the yarn, see what other people have knit the yarn into, what kind of projects. And if you are choosing a project that's already been made, so one that you're not designing yourself or going and entering a tester call for, you need to be really intentional about looking to see what yarns other people have used and being successful with, because it's definitely not the first time that I bought a yarn based on the yarn weight and thought this will be perfect, and it was absolutely not perfect. This was just a very pertinent example more recently in my life that this is just not suited to the Shrike cardigan pattern. 22 stitch gauge. Choose a yarn that you think you're going to get a 22 stitch gauge in. For me, I will be knitting my second sample in a yarn that I had in stash. I didn't want to go out and buy yet another sweater's quantity of yarn. And so even though I wanted it in a bright color, I am settling for this, which isn't really settling because it is a stunning yarn that I'm very excited to knit with. It is Wellington Fibers in their 3-ply. It's 115 grams to 400 yards, and it is 30% mohair, 70% wool, and this is in the color Wellington Charcoal. Wellington Fibers is a brand that is local to me. It's Canadian wool. It is something that I absolutely love, and this is their sport weight base. And so I'm deciding to go with a sport weight as opposed to a DK weight because, one, I don't necessarily think that a fingering weight and a lace weight equal a DK weight anyway. I don't know if I agree with that, especially because they say that a DK, double knitting, is 2 fingering weights, but is a lace weight equal to a fingering weight in this case? I think that they often make either a light DK or a sport weight, and I know I've had success in the past knitting with a sport weight yarn in patterns that call for a DK weight yarn. And so I actually think that this will be an excellent choice for this pattern. And if you are finding that DK weights are too thick when the recommended pattern calls for a mohair and a fingering weight yarn, I would recommend trying a sport weight. I have swatched with this and then unraveled the swatch, which is what I usually do, and that's why I never share swatches, and it worked perfectly. And so this is going to be my next Shrike cardigan, which I will have cast on by the next episode because I want to finish this one first, get the tester out in the world, and then I will join the test as a tester with this yarn, and I'm very excited to use it. It's cool. I love that these yarns, because they have the mohair content, but they certainly don't have as much mohair content as, like, they're not as fluffy. They really integrate the mohair into the yarn itself, and it makes it so that Wellington Fibers is some of like the softest, most warm. It's like wearing a hug. I just love their yarn so much. I actually just missed the Kitchener Knitting Show, which is the most local show to me here in Ontario. And I really wanted to get some more Wellington Fibers, but I just couldn't justify paying the price to go in to buy more yarn and I absolutely don't need. And so I didn't end up going, partially because I was also redoing my bathroom, which has taken over my entire life, but is now pretty much done. So that's nice. But yes, I'm very excited to cast this on. It will make a beautiful cardigan. I need a black cardigan anyways. I am just craving looking at some color because, as you will see, all of the rest of the whips that I have on my needles are neutrals, and all of my languishing whips that I have left are also neutrals. So I'm desperate to cast on something with color. But I'm trying to be responsible with what I cast on as well, which is annoying. I'm such conflict with myself right now. But anyways, this will be beautiful. Very excited for that. Let's talk about DPNs. So this is a new DPN. And the reason it is a new DPN is because my tried and true DPNs that I've actually talked about on here, that I've recommended before, mold, like actual mold, awful. So I have never heard of this happening. Maybe I'm the only one this has ever happened to. For the whole of my knitting career, I have used DPNs that I got off of Amazon. I know, not advised, but I loved them. They were my tried and true. I swore by them. I always thought if I lost them, I would just rebuy them off of Amazon. They were my absolute favorite needles to use. And it's so annoying that they molded on me. And I don't know how this happens. Like, I literally don't know how we got here. So basically, I got this $20 set on Amazon. They're wooden needles. They're 6 inches. Just perfect for my use case. And they came all the way from a 2mm all the way up to a 10mm for $20. Like, what an amazing deal. And so I got them thinking that I would use them for a bit to see if I liked knitting, and then I'd eventually replace them. And I never replaced them because I loved them so much. They were such incredible needles. The only quip I had with them is that because I used Chow Goose for my circular knitting, and then I switched to DPNs for small circumference knitting, sometimes the gauge would go off a little bit and I'd have to readjust and change which needle size I was using. That is my only quip with them. My new quip with them is that they molded. So when I started knitting the sleeves on my Shrike cardigan, I did as I do, and I reached for my DPNs because that is my preferred way of knitting sleeves. And I noticed that when I picked up the DPNs, there was some white fuzz on them, just a little bit of white fuzz. And I thought, because I had just finished my April cardigan, which was knit in a white mohair, that it was just some of the mohair on the needles. It was not some of the mohair on the needles. It was the first signs of mold. So I just wiped them off and started knitting the cardigan with the needles. I was knitting it downstairs for a little bit. I came back upstairs a couple days later. I just hadn't been at my desk. And there were full on like green and white and brown mold spores growing all over my needles in my needle case. It was disgusting. It was horrendous. Like I've never really dealt with mold. It was really awful. And the only explanation I have for it is I must have spilled water at my desk and not noticed. And it must have just grown mold in the needles. And at first I thought it was the needle case that was growing mold. I had a Knit Picks needle case, which has since also been disposed of. And so I took all the needles out and I put them in a bath with soap, and then I hand sanitized them, and I just made sure I sanitized the heck out of them and washed them and laid them out to dry. And then I looked at them in the light, and the mold spores were in the wood. Like I could see the spores in the wood. And maybe I could have washed the mold off if they were metal, but I don't think it would have ever molded if they were metal needles. And so I just had to throw them out. I threw out the whole case. I was like, I'm not risking it. This is the end of the Knit Picks case. I don't think it was the case that molded. I really think it was the needles, and the needle just spread, like the mold just spread onto the fabric of the case. I have a photo. I'm not going to put it up because it's really gross, and I just don't think anyone needs to see that, but it was really disgusting. And so then I didn't have DPNs. I, of course, ripped my DPNs out of everything I was using them in and threw those out as well. And so then I was stuck having to do sleeves with either Magic Loop, which is definitely not my favorite, or a small circumference knitting, which is also not my favorite. I would say in order of preference, DPNs on top, then small circumference, and then Magic Loop for sleeves and the like. And so I am lucky enough to have been able to thrift some 4-inch chagus that go down to a 12-inch circumference for knitting. And so I ended up knitting the rest of the other sleeve of the Shrike Cardigan and most of this sleeve on the small circumference knitting. My problem with that is that my hands start to ache when I'm using small circumference with little needles much faster than they would otherwise. And so my knitting sessions are cut short when I'm doing small circumference in that way. And I know you're saying the answer is Magic Loop. Magic Loop annoys the heck out of me. I have no reason why. I don't know why it annoys the heck out of me. I hate it. I hate it. Don't like using it. I will, like I've done it. I've done sleeves in it. That's how I did the April cardigan when I was abroad, because I didn't want to bring all my knitting needles with me. So I brought my long cables and then did Magic Loop with it. And I hated it. I hated it. And then I don't end up knitting as long because I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. So anyway, so I decided it was time to invest in some DPNs. I asked on Instagram what you guys recommended. You gave me some wonderful recommendations. I ended up going with the chagus because I already have a chagu set, 2 chagu sets of circular knitting needles. And why not add the DPNs to the list? And then at least I'll be solving the discrepancies in gauge. So I ended up going to Creative Knitter. I have been looking for an exclusive order from them anyways. I love their store. And so I ended up buying some needles from them. So I ended up getting 3mm, 3.5, 4, and 4.5 to start off my new DPN set. I know for certain I'm at least going to need a 5. I'm going to need most of the sizes in between there as well. But I have found that probably 90% of what I'm knitting nowadays is between a 3mm and a 5mm. So I think I'll be okay with those sizes for now. And I'll definitely work to increase the quantity of DPNs and availability that I have to me. I decided to go with 6-inch ones. That was one of the reasons for going to Chagu. Some of the other brands only had the 8-inch ones, and I definitely prefer this size of DPN. My only quip with them is that they're so much slipperier and they're so easy to just like yank out of the work, whereas the wood ones would have a little bit more resistance to them and they're not as easily just accidentally pulling them out. So that is my only quip with them, but they have been working wonderfully. They shipped super fast. I was really impressed with that. And yeah, so far I'd recommend them. They haven't molded on me, and what more could I ask for? What more could I ask for? So that was ridiculous. And so part of the reason that the Shrike Cardigan was not finished like I had hoped is that. But the other reason is that because I was so paranoid about the mold growing in my needles is that I fully rewashed and sanitized the sweater the minute that I realized that it was mold, just because I was petrified. Like, it's fabric. Like, I was just petrified that the mold was growing in my precious Shrike cardigan. After so long of working on it and wanting this cardigan, it's almost done, And for it to mold? Are you kidding me? Like, I could not, no thank you. So I sanitized and washed the garment, and it's fine so far, fingers crossed. But for my own peace of mind, I might end up pulling out the whole arm that I was working on with them. So I'm really, like, I keep on inspecting it. It's really freaking me out. So I know I have the yarn to do an additional, like, third arm on it, and I might end up doing that. We will see what my stamina is, especially if I'm casting another one of these things on. I love the pattern, but I mean, there's only so many arms you can do before you get a little bit of fatigue at doing arms. So that's it on the Shrike Cardigan. If you would like to test it, I would love to have you. I pray that your needles do not mold. That's it. Check your needles, people. Don't spill drinks on your needles and not dry them right away. I don't even remember doing it, but I'm sure that's exactly what happened. Let's move on to a different knit. Let's move on to a different knit. So this sweater, oh no, is attached to a different sweater. It is one that I haven't shown in a while. It was one of my languishing whips from winter. And this was a test knit that I had done for Sari Nordlund. It is the Lucia Pullover. Let's see if I can get it situated here. It looks like this. She's beautiful. So with Sari Nordlund's test knits, you only have to do the yoke and an arm, and that's what I had done. And I have since finished the second arm and have continued on the body. Now this sweater is taking forever because of the intricate cabling that's involved. But I know that once this is done, this is going to be a firm favorite in my wardrobe. It already has such a good fit on it. I'm really just getting the length on it now. I love the taper on the arms. It's very dramatic. You were decreasing like every 5 rows or so, for my size at least. And so it's made the arms really roomy, but then also really good around the wrist. There's cabling on the arms. They're probably one of the most fun arms I've ever done, to be honest with you, because the cabling kept it interesting. The rate of decreases kept it interesting. Loved doing the arms. I actually think I liked the arms better than knitting the body itself, but yeah, I just loved this. So yeah, this was a sweater that I tested for Sari Nordlund, and it's out, so you can get this sweater if you're interested. I am knitting it in one of my favorite yarns, Blue Sky Fibers Woolstock Worsted, in their gray color. I have waxed poetic about Woolstock Worsted in the past, so I will save you, but I will just say that this yarn is perfect if you love Cascade 220 and are looking for a step up. I would highly, highly, highly recommend this yarn for your next worsted project. I should be sponsored by them. They're my favorite yarn. I love them. But that means that I think that this sweater is like the perfect happy medium with my favorite yarn and a beautiful cable pattern. I love cables, and so I think I'm just gonna wear this to death. I cannot wait to block it. I'm so interested to see how this blocks out, and I just can't wait to be wearing it. It's just very slow going. It's on 4mm needles, which is pretty tight compared to most. Like, I usually wouldn't knit a worsted weight yarn on a 4mm. I preferred 4.5 to like even 6.5mm needles, but it's working for this pattern. The density is perfect, I think, and I am just loving it. And I think because this sweater is a little bit more dense, it is going to last a lot longer. The cables are going to make it last a lot longer. It's not going to pill as much, and so I just think that that's going to be a workhorse of a sweater that I wear just all the time, and I'm really excited to have it off my needles and on my body. That said, I think that's going to last well into the fall just because it is slow going. I'm doing a couple of rows a night. It's just the cables really slow you down on it, but it's well worth it for the beauty of this pattern. So I am testing the Tendreil Sweater for Sophie, the Knit Pro Girl. She is fantastic. I love her designs. I love the way that they fit on people and how intentional she is with her testing calls, her testing lengths, and just what she does as a designer. She's someone I look up to. She's someone I call a friend. She's fantastic. So Tendreil Sweater. It is a beautiful, very basic drop shoulder pattern, but with this really amazing zigzag pattern on the shoulders. And I am finished the zigzag pattern, and I am on to the stockinette in the round, which means this is my only stockinette in the round sweater that I have on my needles right now, and it is fantastic to grab when I find I reach for stockinette in the round when my hands are getting a little bit too sore from either doing a bunch of ribbing or doing cabling or small circumference knitting. This is what I reach for because it's large circumference knitting in the round. It's it's so easy, and I find that my hands don't get sore with it, which is really wonderful. It's looking a lot better than it did last time because I ended up blocking this. I am knitting this out of yarn that I took from another sweater that I wasn't wearing as much. And I talk about that a little bit more in the last episode. But fun thing about it now is that you can definitely see where I blocked it on the bottom here. Can you see where the yarn gets a lot rougher, kind of around here? So you can see where I blocked it and where it is, I've since knit from, which is kind of funny. So yeah, it's been really lovely working on this. I'm very happy with it so far. I think she might have used this exact yarn, but Sophie has a version in this color and I love it. I probably won't knit it. I might knit it again, but I probably won't knit it again. Not because I don't love it, but just because, I don't know. Maybe I will knit it again. No reason. I just like trying new things. But yeah, I've tried it on. It has an amazing fit. Once I am finished this ball of yarn, I will be putting the collar on it. And it is knit in Blue Sky Fibers wool stock worsted again, and Supreme pattern, Supreme yarn. It'll be a wardrobe staple. One of the reasons I didn't wear it when it was knit in the other sweater is because I just didn't love the color on me, and that will continue to be true. But I think that having an oatmeal color sweater in your wardrobe is a staple, and I think having it with more of a basic sweater suits the yarn so much more. And it's really funny, as I was knitting with it, I was kind of so on the color, and I was like, well, maybe I'll dye it. But after blocking it, I love the color so much more. It's just so funny how blocking something can completely change your perspective of an object. So I would also encourage that if you are like kind of so about what you're knitting, just give it a block. Just put it on some waste yarn and give it a block and see how you feel about it then. Because a lot of the times when I'm like annoyed about an object not working for me, I'll block it and I'm like, oh, it's perfect. I'm just impatient. So I've got one more whip to show you guys. So the last whip is something that I've been talking about probably too much, and something that I am very excited to finish, and will hopefully be finished by the next one because it's a very quick knit, and that is my Sauble Sweater vest. So I just joined the front panels and I'm midway through a row, so I'll show you the back instead. But it's looking like this. Ta-da! The beautiful diamond pattern. I am just loving the way that it's looking in wool as opposed to the linen cotton blend that the original pattern is in. I think the wool just makes it stand out all the more, and I'm so excited. One of the next things I'll be casting on is the Sauble sweater. So I'm so excited to see this diamond pattern in more wool. And honestly, I never get sick of knitting it because it's repetitive. I know not every one of my testers was able to memorize it, but a lot of them were, and I haven't memorized this diamond pattern. It's just so easy. It's just so nice to have a little bit of interest in every other row, but also not to have to look at a chart, so you can bring the knitting with you places. I finished almost all of that knitting while watching Selling Sunset with a friend, for example. I didn't even have to be really looking at it, but it's just a little bit of interest, a little bit of fun, and I just find that it hits the sweet spot in my knitting. And so the whole thing, I've explained it before, but the whole thing with this Sauble sweater vest basically is that it's the same pattern as my Sauble tank, except I'm changing the neckline and I'm altering the hem a little bit. And so this will be sent out to anyone that's already bought the Sauble tank, but the reason I'm calling it something different, and it will be a different pattern on Ravelry, is just simply because if you are looking up a sweater vest, you are not expecting to find a tank top. And I think that having them both in the same like catalog just won't make sense. And so what I'm doing instead is that if you buy one, you'll get the other one for free, because I'm using all the same numbers, it's all the same pattern, just an altered neckline, and I just wouldn't feel right selling that separately. And so if you buy one, you'll get the other, you'll get your winter Sauble and your summer Sauble, and it'll all be good. And that said, like if you want to start making one now, just start with the basic pattern as is, find some wool that'll work with it, and just add a funnel neck as opposed to adding a neck. But if you're not someone that just wants to adapt patterns on the fly, this will hopefully be up by the end of the month is my plan. I just wanted to get a sample just to make absolutely sure what I was recommending for people worked, and so far it is. I did have a heck of a time finding yarn for it. This is the 4th yarn I cast on with, just because everything that I cast on didn't work well with the pattern. I have a bunch of sweater vest quantities of yarn, but they're like variegated yarn, and I find that they were distracting from the diamond. And I might make one of those eventually where I don't care if the diamond is as visible, but for a pattern where you're like showing it to people, I want people to see the diamond. Like that is the unique part of this pattern, and I don't want to like not have the diamond on display because the yarn is too busy. So I ended up going with Drops Lima. I have actually a ton of this. I think I have like 15 balls of this that was intended for a cardigan for my dear husband. But he decided, he thought he wanted a gray cardigan, but then he realized he had a gray cardigan and he actually wanted a navy cardigan. And thankfully I wasn't too far along in the cardigan. So the cardigan got scrapped. So now I have this quantity of yarn, and I think I have enough for both a sweater and a sweater vest. So I'm taking some of the yarn from that stash, detouring it for the sweater vest, and I think like a gray sweater vest is an amazing staple, and I will use it a lot in my wardrobe anyway. So this is Drops Lima. It is an alpaca and wool blend, and I'm just really happy with the way that this sweater vest is turning out. Okay, so that's everything I'm knitting on. I have so many plans to cast things on, but I'm trying so hard to be responsible with the things that I'm knitting, and hopefully very soon I'll be able to get some more color on my needles, because I've just been very cognizant of the fact that everything I'm knitting is like grays and creams, and apart from my lavender cardigan, it's just all the same color, and I just want some brights in my life. And so hopefully those will be cast on soon, and that is reflected in my main yarn purchase. When I had bought those DPNs, I took the opportunity to buy some Cascade 220 from the Creative Knitter. Cascade 220 in the past couple months have had a price increase at almost every store that I usually shop at, from $12 to $14 a skein, and for whatever reason the Creative Knitter still has them at $12.99. And so I took advantage of that to grab this beautiful green color in Cascade 220, which I am so excited to knit on. This is color 9430, which is this their Highland green? I think it's the Highland green shade, and it's so beautiful. It's just swimming. Yeah, so I got 6 skeins of this, which should be enough to make a really roomy sweater for me. And I think that these are the 2 yarns that I'm going to make samples of the Sauble sweater in. I was planning to do it in a mohair and fingering weight yarn, but ultimately I decided that right now I have more use in my life for a little bit of a thicker sweater, and I think I am craving not working on mohair. And I've heard the same from a lot of you, that the mohair and fingering weight is being a little overplayed and you're looking for something a little bit new. So instead I'm just going to be doing it in a worsted weight yarn, and that is what the pattern is going to be done in. So I'm very, very excited for that. And then the thrift find of the century. This isn't a thrift find, it's a secondhand find. I found it on Facebook Marketplace. Someone was selling Gilead on Marketplace for 12 bucks a skein, and I know that they bought it for $22 a skein, so yay me. Yeah, I'm super happy to have found this. This is a yarn that I've always wanted to work with or at least for a very long time, and I've never like built up, I don't know, I haven't wanted to spend the money on it. It's quite expensive at $22 a skein. It is a worsted weight yarn, 250 meters per 100 grams. So it's just a little bit, maybe it's a DK then, comparable to Cascade 220, I'd say. This isn't necessarily the color that I choose, but nonetheless, I'm super happy to work with it. I was able to get 5 skeins, which should get me a sweater out of it. And I'm just so thrilled to have this. So thrilled to have this in my stash now, and I will hopefully be making something with this. This is like a spring color to me, so hopefully this will be a sweater in the springtime after New Year's sometime. But it does feel like super nice. So I've had some luck on Facebook Marketplace lately, and I am just thrilled to bring in such a beautiful yarn into my stash. And you know what? I talked about last time when I was thrifting, there is this one lady that I've gotten so much yarn from, and I have so many questions. Because like she was destashing this. I have gotten some unspun yarn from her. I've gotten some Brooklyn tweed from her, and this time it had a receipt in it, and she bought this in June. Like, why are you buying a sweater's quantity worth of yarn in June and then selling it in late August or early September, I guess? Like, what happened? Like, what? I have so many questions. Like, it's not like it's old yarn. It's like new trendy yarn that this woman is buying and then selling on Facebook Marketplace almost right away. Like, she's like the yarn source. Like, I'm constantly looking at her page, and unfortunately she moved further away. But like, it's well worth the drive because she then marks it down like at least half off. What is happening over there? What weird yarn black market is she operating from? Because like, I don't understand. It's just like, I don't understand. I just have so many questions. But I've never seen her. That's the thing, because we always do porch pickup. And I've never seen her face. So I can't be like, what's going on with the yarn? I'm not going to do that over Messenger, because then what if she cuts me off? Leave your ideas below. I will not reveal this woman's identity, but I just find it very funny how much yarn I've gotten from her. And I just don't understand why she keeps getting rid of it. Like, why are you buying it and then getting rid of it? I don't understand. Anyway, that's all I have for today. That's all I have. It's been a wild time, as usual. Let me know what you're knitting on. Once again, thank you for Anna Luisa for sponsoring this video. You can find a link in the discount code below. And also, if you're interested in testing the Shrike Cardigan, the link for that is also down below as well. I hope you all are having a lovely week, and I will see you next time. Bye!